What is good, Foundation Nation? Today we're checking out the Bohrium by Løft. I don't know how to say it. I'm saying Løft discs. Let's get into it.
It's all or nothing. It's all or nothing.
All right, so Løft was nice enough to send us a few of these to try out. If you're wondering why I'm holding my phone, it's because we forgot the mic. So this is the mic. All right, I can already hear the comments about that, but very excited to try this disc out. Løft has been doing some pretty cool stuff with discs so far. They've ran Kickstarters to get both theirs started. They came out with the hydrogen putter first. That one was all about the speed of a putter. And now we have, this is the first time I've actually seen this in disc technology, where this driver essentially has a completely rounded rim. We'll get some B-roll shots of this. Completely rounded rim on the bottom. The idea behind this is to decrease drag, I guess is what it would be, and increase the speed of flight. So essentially, there's no pocket where air can get trapped while this disc is cutting through the air. And in theory, what they're claiming is that that makes this disc fly faster, go farther, and just overall be a little bit more enjoyable to throw. So with that being said, we're now just going to jump straight into the review. I'm going to treat it like a normal disc, go over the feel, the flight, and then give you my final thoughts. But before we do that, you might be wondering, I haven't seen a disc review on this channel in a while. Well, that is because we actually started a disc review channel. So you can find a link to that in the description down below. It's called Foundation Disc Reviews. We're trying to do one disc review a week. That hasn't always happened, but that's where our home for all of our disc reviews are going to be. So if you really like learning about new discs, checking stuff out, you can check that channel out. And if you'd rather read about these new discs instead of watching disc golf reviews, you can check out FDN Sports down in the description down below, because we also do a blog to accompany each disc review. And so if you'd rather just kind of read about the discs and that works better for you than watching, you can check that out too. But yeah, so starting off with the feel, it's cold out here, so that makes the plastic feel a little bit slicker than it actually is. I'm gonna warm my hand up really quick so I can give you a true feel of what this is. So the plastic almost feels like a slightly slicker version of Star. Nothing wrong with it. Not like the best plastic I've ever felt, nowhere near the worst plastic I've ever felt. It's just a good premium level plastic. We're in a kind of open field, so I won't really be able to tell you too much about the durability of the plastic in this review, but feel-wise, nothing to complain about when it comes to the plastic. The first complaint you're going to hear from me feel-wise is a personal preference thing, which is that this is just a very shallow rimmed driver. My hands on a backhand, I just wish there was a little bit more meat there that I could get my fingers under. On a forehand, my finger kind of sticks out through the bottom. So it does scare me that this disc might slip out of my hand a little bit. But when we do the review, I'm going to make sure flight-wise, I only count shots that I know I hit pretty well so that we can actually get a true flight and we won't worry about any that do slip out if that does happen. The other thing I'll say is I think because of how shallow it is, it really, when I'm holding it, kind of emphasizes that rounded rim, which just is something that's new, so it feels weird to me. As I throw it, I don't feel like it's going to affect my throwing too much. I think I can get a good enough grip that it should be okay. But again, just having my fingers feel that rounded rim, because it's such new technology and ideas, it just kind of feels off. It feels a little bit weird. Just because, again, it's something we haven't seen before. Without further ado, I've never thrown these before. I wanted my first reactions to be live on camera. We're going to go ahead, get a few backhands in. I'm going to just start it off throwing flat or maybe a little bit of hyzer. I don't know what this disc is supposed to do stability-wise. I believe they actually give this a quote-unquote 14 speed. I could be wrong. I'll double-check that to make sure I'm right there. But I believe the whole reason, it's nothing to do with the rim width, but it's just to do with this new technology of the rounded rim. They're saying that's going to make it fly a lot faster and go a lot farther. So let's see if that's true. First slippage of the day. All right, so first 4 throws in, I had one slippage where the disc slipped out, which again, I think was a little bit expected. Initial thoughts, initial feelings, it's a disc golf disc. I really want to see the technology, see what's going on. We're going to give this a fair thing. We're going to go hyzer flat and hyzer forehand now, kind of our normal format of reviews. Give it a fair shot. But initially, I didn't notice anything too crazy about those shots. They look like, I'll measure when I actually get out there so I know. It looked like it was landing 330, 350 range. Two of them I hit pretty flat, got a nice little turn out of, came back. One, I had a slight hyzer on it. Didn't really seem like it wanted to flip up and ride. One, it just kind of like went straight with that hyzer and then hyzered out. So not a crazy overstable disc, very controllable. You know, it flew like a good disc. Nothing wrong with the flight. So we'll see that if I notice anything when I put it on hyzer flat and hyzer in forehand, if I start to see some type of difference, I might actually get a normal disc out of my car so I can throw them back to back in case this disc is doing something crazy and I'm just not noticing it. But initial gut reaction, nothing too crazy that I noticed with those first set of throws. We'll see if something changes as it goes on. All right, so for this next portion, I'm going to be throwing each angle with two different discs. Well, the same disc, but 2-1 since we have 4 of them. So I'll go 2 on hyzer, 2 flat, 2 on anhyzer. After I get through that, I also brought out a Wraith and a Destroyer. That way I can throw it right next to each other on similar lines and just to kind of see the speed, see if maybe I'm just not throwing that far today and that's why they're not going very far. That way we give it a completely fair test because it is cold out. I haven't played disc golf in a solid week and a half, maybe, I don't know, whenever we filmed the last video. So I don't want my bad performance to make this disc look worse than it actually is, when it might just be that I'm having an off day today distance wise. So that way the Wraith and the Destroyer will be able to kind of put it into that, and I can throw them next to each other and see if I'm like, oh wow, that disc is moving considerably faster, or if it's just a normal disc like it kind of seemed those first few throws. So we're gonna start it out on hyzer and see how it reacts.
I mean, that had really nice like flip up and glide.
All right, both hyzers down the range. The second one slipped out a little bit early, but it was a good enough throw that I'm okay factoring that in. The first one was a much better hit. It actually had a slight flip up, had a decent bit of glide, got out there to, I think it looked like it landed. It was a decent bit past the 300s. We're going to call it like 320 that it landed, which on a hyzer, I mean, that's decent for me. I'd put that kind of in the same class of where I would get a Destroyer or something along those lines on a pure hyzer line. Only thing that's a little bit different is a Destroyer on a pure hyzer line for me normally isn't flipping up. So that did get a little bit of flip up and carry to get there. I think what it might just factor into is rim width wise, it's probably like a 10 or 11 speed rim width wise. They're calling it a 14 speed. I actually looked at the flight numbers, 14.6, -1.3. And the 14 speed is, again, just because of the rim shape. So when you factor in that the disc rim width wise is a 10 speed, that's incredible performance. But when you're out there, when you're claiming to be one of the fastest discs on the market, I got to compare you to the fastest disc on the market. And so when you do that, it's, you know, right in the same range. So we're going to go ahead actually now, rip these out flat. I expect to get a decent bit of turn if I can actually release flat and see what the distance potential is on a flat line. That was low. It was flat. Now that one is way more stable. All right, the two flat ones are down the range. There is a slight chance that one of the 4 that I brought out here today is from an older run. They sent us original ones for this disc review, emailed us and were like, hey, we actually sent you the wrong ones. We've retooled it. The first ones are way too stable. So we're sending you the retooled real version that, you know, everyone at home that donated to the Kickstarter is going to get. Because if you noticed, the first one I threw, it was low. I actually wanted to keep that in the video for a specific reason, but I didn't intentionally throw it that way. But I wanted to keep it in the video for a specific reason. But it did get some nice turn out of it and then some fade. The second one was just, I mean, it flew the flight path like a brand new Destroyer, where it just goes straight and dumps, which isn't what the other 3 are flying like. So I'm going to just take into consideration there's a chance that is not from the correct run and not going to factor the flight of that in at all. But the first one that I threw, the reason I wanted to keep it in, I'm not re-throwing it, is because on the Kickstarter page, one of the things that they claimed is that because of the reduced drag, it actually is what increases the glide. So normally you see like dominess, stuff like that, be what's really increasing the glide on a disc like a River, for instance, which is another one that has a claimed 6 glide. But on this disc, what's increasing that glide is the reduced drag that the rounded rim gives, according to them. I'm not smart enough to know what the heck that actually means. But what I did notice is, again, that came out low, worm burner, turned over, but was able to still push out to that, like, I think it was just shy of the 300 mark when it hit, which basically, if you have a disc that doesn't have a lot of glide and you throw it on the line I just threw it on, it's going to get to the ground fast. It's going to have a big flare skip. That was actually able to get almost a full flight out of it. Didn't burn, didn't do whatever. It wanted to stay in the air. So when the disc is up in the air, up high, I don't really notice a huge increase in glide. But when it was low, I did notice it. And that's actually something they said that this disc, because of the reduced drag on the rounded rim, is great for like low tunnel shots. And that was the first time I've experienced that, yeah, if I had a really low tunnel shot where I can't get the disc more than 10 feet off the ground, I could see where that disc performed slightly different than what I would expect a normal distance driver to do. So I'm gonna go get those 4 out. I'm gonna release 2 on Anheuser, and then we're gonna go with the Wraith and the Destroyer head to head against the next 2 on a flat, maybe a Heiser line, to see how they perform. Oh wow! Not expect that. Oh boy. Doesn't look bad. All right, I think I'm gonna redo both of those Anheuser shots you just saw. I left them in just because I felt like I hit them both decent, and based on how the disc flies when thrown flat, I would expect, even if I didn't hit them decent, on a decent bit of Anheuser for it to kind of pan a little bit more. But one thing I did notice on their Kickstarter page is they again claimed, because of the rounded rim, that it allows the disc to have high speed understability, but a lot of low speed stability. So again, I'm gonna throw those both again just to make sure that this is what's going on, but I'm wondering if it's not a super great disc on Anheuser for a player like me, because I struggle a little bit with a nose up Anheuser release. So a normal understable disc, a normal disc that flies on this path, I don't have any trouble with, because I'm able to still get it over and it's still able to cruise off. I'm wondering if this disc, because I'm not able to get it up to the same speed I do flat when I throw it on Anheuser and I have a little bit of that nose up I struggle with, if because it's not getting to that speed, if that's making it the low speed stability kick in sooner, and that's why we saw what we just saw. But I'm gonna go ahead and throw them next to the Wraith and the Destroyer, and then I'll redo those Anheisers before I throw the forehands, and then we'll wrap it up with some final thoughts on the disc. All right, so now that I've thrown some normal discs without the rounded rim, the Destroyer and the Wraith, that lime green one was the Destroyer, I forgot to show that at the camera. Destroyer didn't hit super well, so I wasn't able to actually get over on it. So it hyzered out a little bit. It looked like it went basically just as far as the Bohrium did. The Bohrium, the first one wasn't great. I don't even know if we put that in the video. We probably didn't. That's up to Connor. Second one, though, I hit where I was happy with it. I got a little turn out of it, a little fade out of it. Went exactly kind of where it's been going, past that 300 mark, that 320, 330 range, maybe 350, I don't know. The Wraith, though, looked like it broke 350, maybe got to 375, which was definitely the farthest throw I've had today. So I think the reason that I'm struggling with this disc is because of the way that it was marketed beforehand. So I came in with the expectation of the reduced drag having the biggest impact on the speed of the disc. And I expected to be throwing a disc and being like, holy cow, I've never seen a disc fly that fast. And that's just not what's happening. The Wraith and the Destroyer, for me at least, went just as fast, just as far with the same amount of effort. Actually, the Wraith went farther with the same amount of effort. And so I didn't, the increased speed, I didn't really notice. But what I did notice is it does seem to have more glide than a typical disc with that shape. So meaning it doesn't have a lot of dome. There's nothing crazy about the rim shape other than the rounded rim, the underneath side. Yeah, the rounded rim. That's the only thing that's weird about the disc. The actual like shape of the rim, the flight plate, all of that feel very normal. And for that disc in my hand to have that amount of glide is not normal. So you can definitely tell the rounded rim gives the disc a lot more glide. Favorite line I've been able to throw it on is that hyzer, let it flip up a little bit and just go. And I think that if it had been marketed where I came into this thinking purely about the glide, I'd be a lot more impressed than I am right now. One thing I also did notice is it's very cold out today. Throwing the rounded rim disc didn't hurt my hand at all. Didn't rip off because it's smooth. There was nothing that ripped against my fingers. I didn't have that like cold pain. I thought it was because of the hand warmer. Turns out it was just because of the shape of the disc. Because the second I threw that Wraith, I wanted to ball up in a ball and cry like a little baby because it hurt so bad and caught me so off guard. So it's definitely the rounded rim is why I wasn't feeling it. But downside to the rounded rim was that when I've been throwing it, we have had we've thrown 12 of them so far, I believe. Maybe more. I think it's at 12. And I've had 2 or 3 that slipped. So where I threw it, my hand, everything about my throw felt good. It just came out a hair early. So that's a little bit higher than normal. If I throw with normal discs, I do occasionally have one slip out early, but we're probably talking 1 out of every 20 to 30 throws, not 2 out of every 12 throws. So that is something to keep in mind. But we're going to redo the Anheuser. We're going to try it on 4 hands, and then I'll give you my like official final thoughts on the disc technology, the disc itself, and whether or not I think that you should try it out. All right, quick distance report. Now that I've walked out and looked, the Destroyer was actually the shortest. Again, I didn't have a great throw with it. It was at like 330, we're going to call it. About 10 to 15 feet farther was the Bohrium, so we'll call it 345. And then the Wraith was right around 380 or so, which for me today, really good. If you're curious about my normal power, normally I can reach like 425. It's cold out here, so like 380 is a great throw for me. So the Bohrium is kind of performing right in that range, which again, for the rim width, that's very impressive. But when you're trying to say it's the fastest disc on the market, 14 speed, it's no longer impressive. So that you got to take with a grain of salt. Whether you think that's impressive or you don't think that's impressive, holding it in my hand and having it go that far, I think attributes a lot to the glide, and it does feel impressive to me. But again, when you're looking at it, if you're trying to find like the fastest disc in your bag, the fastest disc money can buy, that's not it. So we're going to go 4-hand Anheuser and then wrap her all up and put a little bow on it.
There we go. That was an Anheuser.
Yeah, and it actually fought out like crazy. All right, so final thoughts on it now that I've thrown it every which way. Things that I've noticed. When throwing on hyzer and flat and you're able to get enough speed on it, it does have some nice high speed under stability where it does want to cruise and then it kicks back in. So on hyzer, it does want to flip up and ride. Does have good low speed stability. On Anheuser, yet again, I mean, I threw that on an insane amount of Anheuser. Again, I do struggle with nose up Anheuser, so keep that in mind. Threw it on an insane amount of Anheuser and it fought out like a mug. I think it's, again, something with the rounded rim where high speed, it does have that understability, but something about it allows it to have a lot more low speed overstability than you can typically get in a normal disc. So it has a much wider range. You normally don't see a disc that has that high speed understability. It's also able to have that low speed overstability. So the only thing I can factor in that's different is the rim width. I think the biggest question that I had coming into this video, and what I'm imagining you might have at home, is essentially, is the rounded rim shallowness of the disc that provides discomfort to me as a consumer, as a thrower, not a huge fan of it. But does the flight that it provides outweigh the uncomfortableness of the shallow and the rounded rim? After throwing it, Unfortunately, no, it doesn't for me. It might for you. I think that if you have someone with smaller hands and, you know, a destroyer is too big for you, you don't like the feel of that, maybe even a wraith is a little too deep, this might be the like exact disc you're looking for. You might love this thing. If you've thrown the Prodigy X series, that's kind of the similar depth. This actually might be a hair shallower, but if you love the X series and you have really good success with that, might be worth checking out. But hopefully you kind of understand what I'm saying as far as the depth goes. Hopefully those are good explanations. But you got some smaller hands and you're looking for a disc that can fly kind of like a 12 speed or so, this might be one worth checking out. I wouldn't super recommend this for brand new players because you do have to get the disc up to at least a 350 plus level of speed to get that understability to come out in it. If you're throwing it only 250, 280, it's just going to kind of dump on you. And at that point, I mean, just throw a destroyer, really. It's not going to provide that much advantage to you. But if you are throwing 350 plus, I can see some instances where this would be worth it. Lower tunnel shots, things like that. On forehand, it actually flew great for me. It did slip out on the second one. I didn't throw more because if it's slipping out on my backhand, it's going to slip out on my forehand. That just is what it is. I don't have a great forehand. I'm not going to learn much from it. But that initial flight before it hit the pole was actually looking pretty good. Overall, if you haven't watched our Foundation Disc Golf review channel, one thing we do is we provide a Foundation certified score out of 10. And for this disc, for the Bohrium by Løft, which again, I'm probably getting flamed for saying it wrong. I think it's Løft. I'm going to go with a 6.9. 6.9. The flight I think would go put the disc somewhere in the 8 range. Really enjoyed the flight of the disc, but the feel just brings it down a little over a point. I just can't get super comfortable with the feel. I don't think that this is something that's like the future of disc technology, like it possibly could have been when I was, thinking about doing this review. I don't think that we're quite there yet, but I really applaud the guys over there for trying something new. At least they've put it out there and tried it. They were able to accomplish a great flying disc. They were able to accomplish a disc with insane amount of glide without feeling like it has insane amount of glide. They were able to accomplish a lot of things that were very interesting. But again, I just don't think that the flight it accomplishes and what it does is different enough from normal discs to justify the rounded rim and the unique feel in your hand. But if you have a shop where you can go in and feel this disc, I definitely recommend it. See if you like it. Or, if you have a buddy or you want to pick one up yourself. The Kickstarter is unfortunately over, but they will be hitting the market here shortly, and you can definitely do that then. And I think that, if you're a disc golf fan and you love just trying new discs, you got to get your hands on one of these. You might fall in love with it. If you have had a chance to throw it, let me know in the comments down below what you thought. Yeah, other than that, we'll see you in the next one. That was to sync the audio.
Yeah.
I was telling the people at home because I know you and I know you're going to keep that in there.